Welcome to the L&D Go Beyond podcast. This season, we're digging into how skilling, smarter learning design, and emerging AI tools are reshaping real workplace capability. You'll hear practical insights from leaders tackling the gaps between training, performance, and what work now demands. Get ready to go beyond. Enjoy the conversation.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to welcome you again to yet another episode of the Go Beyond podcast series. And today I'm happy to have Mike Stein, uh, who I actually got to know about just a few months back. And that was because I came across a very interesting research that he did, and with some very interesting conclusions as well. So that started a conversation between the two of us. And then we thought maybe let's come together and talk about it in bit more detail and, spread the information to our community members who can benefit from that. And as we continued our conversation, it expanded to other aspects as well, which I think we'll carry on to continue with the discussion today. So with that, you all know me, so I don't need to do an introduction about myself, but I request Mike first thank him for taking the time out to join me today and to introduce himself. So Mike, please do that.
Sure. Well, yeah, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me. My name is Mike Stein. I am the Director of Design at ID Atlas. That is my instructional design e-learning agency. So e-learning is really my business, and this both the research and the whole conversation that we're having here is really central to me and matters. And it's the difference between if I charge someone one rate or another rate. And so all of this is really personal and important to me. And I also have a personal mission to knock down Articulate from their monopoly as well. So there's also that. But yeah, I think that's probably mostly what you need to know about me.
Right. And I know that's nothing personal, but I think it's something that you've experienced, and probably I'm sure as you share your experience, which you have backed with research, right? And the reason why you want to do that. So why don't you just go ahead and talk about, what you discovered? And I think I learned from your the article that you had published called Monopoly Tax. And I think it was a very interesting title you gave it, grabbed my attention. And that's what truly it appears to be. So please, share the wonderful design of what you had set out to identify, and then what did you conclude from that?
Yeah. So yeah, where to start? So the monopoly tax came after our initial research. That was kind of the write-up of maybe the conclusions and kind of what we found. But the research itself happened, I would say maybe like August to October of last year, 2025. My team and I were getting sick of just like everything taking forever in Storyline, and we use Rise, but like I don't know, Rise feels limited, Storyline feels bloated. So it was like there's got to be something better in the middle of this where I don't need to like spend hours and hours. Like the benefit of something like Rise is that you don't need to plan out every single pixel, and if you nudge something just a little bit up, now it doesn't work. And the most annoying thing, one of the most annoying things with Storyline is setting it up. Everything looks good when you preview it, then you publish it, and now there's just a little white line all the way at the bottom, and I can't, like, this is not professional. This doesn't look good. And I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. I'm not so crazy with that, but I that bothers me, and I'm like, no, this is not what I want to deliver to a client. So anyway, that the cost of it, the fact that I had a couple different subscriptions based on different clients and things, and I was like, there's got to be something better. I got turned on to Parta.io, which is actually the one that I'm using today, as much as I'm using it, and we'll talk about that more later, I'm sure. But we were looking for an alternative. Got in touch with Parta and was like, okay, $50 a month, monthly plan, more capability than Rise, but less capability than Storyline. This does enough of what I need that it's worth it, and at a like half or like a third of the price. So I'm like, yeah, let's run with that. But that really was like, okay, well, let me see what else is out there. And then that was really what sparked our interest in this topic and our interest in like, okay, if we were going to find an alternative to Storyline, what is it? And that took us a little bit of research. We looked around. The really only thing that I was really adamant about was it has to be cloud-based. Right before this research, I had a Dell XPS, I think 15-inch, spec'd out all the way, like almost like a $4,000 laptop with like 64 gigs of RAM, everything like that. And I closed it without turning it off and woke up the next day and it was like overheating, and then it like literally burned the motherboard. And I'm like, well, I'm done. I'm Windows. I can't, like, this is the normal behavior that I should be able to just do. So that was frustrating. So that burnt it out. So I went back to Mac after like, I think my last MacBook was like 2011. So it's been a while that I've been on Windows and built my own PC and did this thing. I'm not like only Mac now, but I'm mostly using Mac, just battery life, and that's another conversation. But anyway, so Windows is the only way you can run Storyline though. And I was like, all right, there's Parallels, there's other things, but let me see like cloud-based native. I don't want to deal with this. So that was really the only big thing that I was like, it has to work on the browser. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with like, I have to use people buy a computer to run Storyline. That is a common advice given in the instructional design subreddit, which is like, don't use Parallels, buy a cheap Windows. Why are we buying a computer for one piece of software? Like, this is anyway, hence the monopoly tax, right? What are we paying for sticking with this legacy platform that back in 2015, 2017 was very innovative. 2026, not so much. Like, yeah, they're adding stuff, but it's not there. So long story, but that was where the research came from. And the thing that we were trying to find was like, what's the alternative? How can we solve these pain points and get something that is better for our development flow? We're talking about ROI in this conversation that you and I are having, but it is for me, it was just like, I don't want to click 1,000 times to push one, to do one thing. So I was looking at that. We decided to we picked 10 of like the main competitors that we could find that were big things. Since doing the research, lots of other was like, how could you leave us off this list? And like we picked what we could at the time. So we picked 10 competitors, including Rise was one of them, just to see like, we want to drop Storyline, but what can we do in Rise then? Like, how does that compare to everything else? So we did give it a fair shot. And we designed a storyboard, built all the assets for a single 15-minute-ish module that would be like a normal scope of a module that we would create for a client. And we generated all of the assets, built the storyboard, and it's level 2-ish interactivity. So like some clicking around, there's tabs. It's not just straight passive, but it's also not like the most engaging interactive thing, because we also wanted to be realistic. Like, what do most courses look like? And most courses are not the 50, 100, 200-hour development that you might do for like a really strong e-learning game or something like that. So we built that out, and then we kind of pressure tested these 10 different platforms to see. We tracked a few different metrics that we could grab with WhatPulse, which is a kind of input mapper or recorder, which is we tracked how many times we clicked, how many scrolls we did in terms of meters, and how many keys we pressed, and then the overall total time. We also got a couple other like useful, interesting things, but not so much, I guess, interesting more than useful, which was like screen, like click hotspots. So like we could see where the patterns of clicks were. And we also got like most common keys, most common shortcut combination, things like that. But We didn't really publish any of that because it was a little bit beside the point, but we did grab that data. And aside from Lectora, which is really the biggest outlier on the list, aside from Lectora, all of our platforms basically performed a comparable course that we first built the baseline in Storyline. The baseline took 6 hours. All of the other courses we were able to build around like average an hour and a half. So we're talking about 4 times faster than building in Storyline for something that's comparable. If you go and look on our data dashboard, I guess, the results of our study is all published on the ID Atlas website. Maybe we can include a link there for everyone else. But if you go look at that, you'll see the breakdown of clicks and all the metrics that we did, and you'll also see the project showcase, which has side by side. This is what this looks like. This is what this looks like in this platform, right? So you can compare what does it look like in Storyline, what does it look like in Genially, what does it look like in Storyline, what does it look like in CoAssemble or Parda or Easy or any of the other ones that we looked at. So that was another big thing that we wanted to do, because even as we were looking at the competitors, we couldn't figure out like what does this actually look like? What is the product that you're buying here? And like, yeah, you can get a trial, but some of like maybe one or two had like sample courses and you could see what it looked like, but everything else was just like, trust us, you'll like our end product. And it was like, I don't know. So that kind of solved that problem as well. So that was our takeaway. The fastest tool we built in 50 minutes. And I think 6 hours to 50 minutes is a big difference for us in terms of development time. And then I think it was interesting just because we were able to see how much are we paying for and what are we actually being able to do here. The only one other thing that I mentioned about this is that we had a little bit of experience with Parda, and obviously we had experience with Storyline and Rise, but basically all of the other ones we came in blind and just picked it up and just built, and it still took like an hour and a half at like almost at worst. So like some of them pushed like on the 2 hour limit, but even so, you're looking at like 3 times the speed, never having opened the platform before. Now if you go the opposite way, you never opened Storyline before, and how long is that going to take you to develop something? So yeah, a lot there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in terms of the developers, I think the ROI or the company itself was investing effort on developing courses. Efficiency, it can be by just looking around and not just looking at something that's coming our way very right now. Is efficiency can be done by simply looking beyond what we are already using and explore that. And I think the other tools also check the boxes for procurement or any others who would say, okay, that is this tool okay to use, and many other concerns that they have. So as long as that's the case, and of course, companies may want to maintain a few licenses just to be able to maintain the older courses. But yes, I think the efficiency is right there. But that also brought us to this the point that now, of course, a topic that has been widely discussed is with the advent of AI, artificial intelligence, and what it offers. The focus should ideally shift. Even when use of AI, recently last year's reports on L&D and what it do when it came to artificial intelligence. Um, uh, the most usage of AI, that technology was leveraged mostly for translations or for voiceovers and things like that, right? Which are easier, low-hanging fruits, in my opinion. And they are also aimed at efficiency and cost saving, right? So they are, in my opinion, from the 3 waves of AI, as I call, or any technological implementation or adoption. First wave mostly focuses on efficiency. Then it has to shift towards effectiveness and quality. And then the third one towards transformation, right? So I would say that based on your study, to shift to efficiency, you did not really have to leverage AI, but as much as you can, you should do, now that these kind of features are available. But I think the shift should be towards quality and effectiveness, right? So, and we are also increasingly talking about we can produce a large volume of courses, but are we really having any impact, right? Are these courses being not just accessed or completed, but the point is, what is the value that they add, right? Or in terms of skill building or knowledge development and things like that. So uh, we got to think for effectiveness. And there's a lot that I believe AI technology and what it can do offers. And I'd like to have your view on, have you experimented with some of that, and what is your experience? Can you can talk about that a bit more?
Yeah, I'm definitely an AI early adopter, and as soon as ChatGPT really started spreading, I jumped on it. I was like, "This is amazing. This is crazy." It's really interesting. I'll go a little bit on a side tangent just to tell you my experience with AI right now. Um, I was working with a friend who I think pre-COVID, like 2019, 2020, told me like, "Hey, I heard you develop apps," because I had done like YouTube tutorials to follow something to just like make a bunch of web views and publish it on the App Store. And like, yeah, I made an app. And I was like, and he was like, "Hey, I have this idea for this golf app that I want to make." And I was like, "Cool, but I'm probably not gonna be able to make that for you. I can help you design it though." And he was like, "All right, cool, let's design it together." And then 2 years later, we were looking at ChatGPT, and we were like, "All right," we actually went through a whole design process and everything, and then we were looking at ChatGPT, and we're like, maybe ChatGPT can just code this for us. And at the time, it was like, no, this is not so easy. Like we can't code this just with ChatGPT with the LLM. And then, fast forward to December of last year, and I started playing around with Cursor, and now I'm 100% into Claude. We rebuilt the app in like 3 weeks, and it's just like, this is crazy. And basically, we had this joke like, "Oh, I knew you were the developer. We just had to wait for the technology to catch up to you." And I was like, "Okay, yeah." Because now I'm like, now I can just make the app. So it's, yeah, I don't know. I'm very much on board with AI. In terms of my instructional design usage, though, I agree. Like, the main thing, there's two ways I think people are selling AI right now, which are both okay. But maybe, like you said, not transformative. I think the first way is, like you said, generating assets. Everything we built in our test course was generated with ChatGPT, so all the assets. I think we used 11 Labs for the voicing. So we had voiceover with the AI. A lot of ChatGPT wrote the storyboard and the content and stuff. Obviously, we touched it up, and we didn't just like, "Hey, write us a course on this thing," but we didn't spend the time that we would have, personally designing it for a client. But so I think asset generation, initial passes, things like that are good uses of AI. But to your point, like, sometimes they're efficient, sometimes they're not. Like, I had to have a conversation with one of my team members of like, "Well, you spent 4 hours generating images on AI, and we could have just paid a designer to just draw it." I don't know. Like, maybe it's not better. So like, I think it depends, right? Like, and the other thing I would say for like voiceover is often like, "Oh, it's so much easier to just generate." Like, it's, you really got to look at ROI there, because it's like, to generate takes almost as long, if not longer, than me just saying it right once on the microphone. Because I'm typing it in, I'm waiting for it to generate, and then I'm fixing all the weird things it says. I have to put in pauses, I have to edit it. So like, there's a lot more to it than just like dump it in and export. Like, where you get real benefit in audio is when you're going back 2 years later or a year later and have to edit something, like, "Oh, this name changed," and like, "Oh, I can just type that back into that same voice model and put it back in." Big win, big win. Yes, you don't have to redo the whole project. That's a big deal. But other than that, like, pure just like recording it, it's more convenient, not necessarily more efficient. And then the other side that I would say, besides asset generation, just like initial course stuff, is the let AI generate this course for you, which all the authoring tools love to tell you that they can do, and like, just dump in your PDFs and your PowerPoints, and we'll make a course for you. And we're starting to see a little bit of shift in that now. Like initially it was just like just throw it in and like that's what it is. And it almost takes longer to fix it than to just do it like it's again like not quite efficient. But there are some authoring tools now that have started really thinking about instructional design. I will say shout out to Is Easy authoring tool is one that I looked at that I've been talking with them. I'm doing actually doing a webinar with them later this month. But their course generator thing is still not transformative, but at least it's on the way because they allow you to put in a your content, whatever it is, PDF, PowerPoint, whatever the thing is, and they allow you to like sketch it out and then see like the instructional design behind it. Like here's an opener and here's presenting and here's where we're assessing and here's so like they're trying to push you in that direction, but like again, it's as good as the designer wants it to be, and especially how these things are marketed towards like subject matter experts and HR professionals and things like that. You gotta, you know, there is a real question there of like, is the tool doing enough good to offset actual like subject matter knowledge of instructional design and like best design practices and things like that. So I think there's a real question, and I like your three waves, and I agree with you. We're kind of between efficiency and effectiveness and haven't quite hit we've not really hit the mark on either of those, but it's enough of a convincing thing to get people to buy into it at least.
Right. And in my experience, honestly, you know, a good number of courses that are produced, there's not a lot of very complex instructional design applied to it, right? Very standard techniques, which are, of course, good, but it gives a lot of courses. Why else would, let's say, video-based courses become so popular, right? Because they are very passive instruction, or they are just knowledge being delivered. But they, just because it's easy to produce videos, you have a lot of video-based courses, and then they get supplemented with other types of assets to make them more effective and stuff like that, right? So we have seen not so effective approaches also become very popular, and a good amount of courses being created. In fact, Upside Learning and Mitra Learning in Media, when ChatGPT and all that was launched, we started exploring that as well. We developed drinks and launched it. At the same time, we were already aware that what it can do and cannot do, or there will be limitations depending on the nature of the inputs. So at that time, unlike all the other companies, we launched it with the assurance to companies that we are not charging you subscriptions. We are saying we will build the courses for you for a fraction of the cost because we are taking advantage of AI, but we'll give you the course of the quality or the standard that you are paying for. So if AI doesn't do a good job, we take the hit, but give you what you need. And reason is because we've been a services company all along, and we know we do business because the company succeeds in achieving its goals. You know, it's not by having so many subscriptions, but it's by having a happy customer. So we did that approach, and we still stick to that because you know, and the other aspect of that product even remains today is it could be customized to meet a wide range of criteria that an organization may have, whether it is about the look and feel or other things. And another important differentiation is most of these products are essentially producing it in the deep scrolling RISE type of courses, right? Which are easy, they are more text heavy, likewise. But one of the formats that we are promoting or supporting instead is the storyline type level 2 courses, right? That could be produced, which could be enriched with media and other things as you know, you want. And of course, there are other features. So that is one aspect where you can get efficiency and cost effectiveness both. On the other hand, as the technology started advancing, we are improving that product on an ongoing basis. At the same time, recently at Learning Technologies, we launched another product, which is Persona Train. And what that enables is AI-powered role plays and simulations using which, you know, one could practice unlimited number of times to master any particular conversational task, right? So that brings me to the other value that AI technology offers, right? I mean, it allows an instructional designer or a learning designer to think out of the box now. What used to be very complex to build or very expensive. Therefore, it was not impossible, but would have been taking a lot of effort and you would not invest. It didn't make sense to do that. And yet it may not give you a dynamic experience. Right now, depending on every sentence which is spoken differently, the role play system may react differently, right? And it would even look at how you are speaking. Is it clear? A lot of things that could be considered. So rubrics could be set which are custom to assess the performance of a learner and give good feedback. So it actually extends the power of what can be achieved by a learning designer, right? So there are a lot of those experiences that are now possible to be built by learning designers, and therefore be able to add value in terms of the effectiveness of the training programs that they want to build. So it's a shift towards effectiveness and quality that I was talking about is made possible by such courses. At the same time, I see that there is also consolidation in some form. The consolidation is in terms of features or abilities or capabilities within tools. So for instance, I was watching on one tool recently, looking at it, where they have tied up with a video generating platform. And now within the authoring tool itself, you can provide a script and generate a video, and it gets embedded on a particular block on the screen, and so on, right? So the technology for translation, for technology for uh, recording audio using a wide range of voices, and everything will get integrated within a single authoring tool. With that, I believe that authoring tools, therefore, and then people are also learning vibe coding, which means you can actually have far more superior interactions programmed, and they could also be embedded within the authoring tools. So what may as well, I think, and this is my just quick thinking, is maybe the authoring tools may remain just packaging tools, right? Depending on uh, how they are. So you can create blocks, you are just putting them together. There's not much that you're doing using the native authoring tool functionality, but a lot using external features. And so what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I had that exact dilemma a little bit with a project maybe last week or the week before. It was a traditional kind of hotspot, click here to see what this person is doing wrong and why you should, put on your safety vest, and he's holding a hammer instead of holding a clipboard or whatever. So it wasn't like something big, but it was something that I would have built in Storyline with some different states and putting it in there and everything. But then I was able to just vibe code it all with Claude, and then I was like, well, should I put this in Parda or should I just put this in the LMS? And like, because I was initially like, well, I need a title, and then I need a description, and I need to let them know how long it is. And I was like, no, Claude, you put in a title and put in a slide, and you do this thing and you do that thing. And I was like, yeah, I don't need anything else here. I just need this exact code package, and then I can just upload that as my SCORM package. So I think the authoring tool is going to have to do a little more than just be a wrapper even. One of the things that I know that Parda is doing, which is interesting, and we'll see again for their user base if it pans out and it makes sense in the long term, but like they are allowing the ability to take your course and pull pieces out of it and be able to embed them in other places. So for example, if you have Notion set up in your company and you want to use like different Notion pages as like a quick guide FAQ thing, you can actually take the page of your like larger course that you sent somebody through an onboarding, and you can embed that in the Notion block. So it's an embeddable piece. You could make that same argument, like just make a better library of your vibe coded interaction. So I think it's two things. One, yes, I do think that for a lot of people, it will just be the wrapper. I've heard that from a lot of people, like, we just use Storyline and we just embed things as web objects or like the JavaScript code. And I'm like, why are you doing that? But whatever, they want it as a SCORM wrapper. Fine, sure. And then I've also, I think that there's still a technical gap with a lot of instructional designers. that will close to some extent as time goes on and this gets more prolific and more people start using it and more people learn how to use vibe coding. But there's a lot in vibe coding that's not just easy to pick up, right? Like you have to learn about GitHub, you have to learn about file structure and coding, somewhat of coding languages. You have to trust the AI enough to believe that it can do the thing that you want it to do and figure out how to ask it to troubleshoot. And like a lot of it's AI literacy, but some of it still is a lot of programming language and understanding the concepts, even if you're not writing it. So yeah, I'm split because like on one hand, I'm like, we don't need authoring tools anymore at all. And then on the other hand, I'm like, well, at the same time, they still provide value. And then the biggest thing that I think that authoring tools provide is someone to yell at. So like, this thing broke, your feature isn't working. If you can't yell, you can't call up Sam Altman and be like, hey, Sam Altman, you need to fix OpenAI because it's not ChatGPT is not working. And it's like, I know you got no support structure there, and that's not an acceptable response for like a Fortune 500 company or something. So, and then I think also, for example, even like you could extend this argument to the LMS and like build your analytics into your interactions and just hook up a database or hook up one of the things that's been really interesting to me is to be able to take vibe coded HTML interactions and embed a little snippet of like Google Apps script in there, not into the HTML, but the HTML is using JavaScript to send it over to Google Apps script. And then you can dump your data into a Google Sheet. Don't do that with proprietary data. Don't do that with sensitive information because there's vulnerability there. But for just like, hey, how many people got this question right or wrong? Did this person, is the compliance record right? Like there's some things that don't need the highest level of IT security. Other things do. No patient data, no PPI, none of that stuff. But like for a lot of basic stuff, especially in like nonprofits, small businesses, startups that don't have the budget, you can skip the whole LMS and just jump right into like vibe coding and dump stuff into Google Sheets and like have all your records right there and pull that back into your coded stuff. So like I don't know, you can make the argument on that side, like even the LMS is out the window, but how much does it cost to maintain a developer on staff that is able to fix stuff at a moment's notice? Because like I don't know if we're talking about like an LMS like LearnWorlds, we're talking about their highest like basic tier is like $3,000 a year. That's a lot less than I would have to pay salary. So like they're providing the support, they're providing, troubleshooting, that kind of stuff. So there's value, but it's a question that you should think about. Yeah.
I agree. And I think over time, probably as we do, the way authoring tools also started shaping up is they got inspired by earlier when we used to build courses using Flash, XML, we used to build templates and all of that. So the efficiency came by building standardized components and all of that. I guess vibe coded standardized components will come into play, which can be easily maintained. A library of those will be produced and leveraged, right? Everything doesn't have to be very creative or very unique.
Yeah.
And therefore, I do see that happening. There's going to be a balance that will come somewhere, is my belief. That only time can tell. As far as the packaging aspect is concerned, even Claude or any other tool, when you set it right, it can also package it and make it SPOM compliant.
Exactly.
So again, that value is not going to be offered by authoring tools. That will also get lost, or it's already lost. Actually, I've already seen that work.
Yeah.
Our team has been able to do that as well. So I no longer see value in that. The other thing is when the importance of standalone courses or units. So I heard some expert also talk about that course as a unit of learning, that's going to lose value. And that's true. I believe so because of the ability to create far more richer experiences, learning extending beyond knowledge creation, going into application type or practice type of, or learning on the job, meaning in the flow of work, in terms of performance support, in many different ways. If we start thinking about how can we influence performance in a positive fashion, it's like how do we as learning designers or developers think about making an impact having an influence on change in behavior and the performance, then all of these become very important components, and therefore the foundational piece will lose its importance as it used to have. Is also what I believe is the case. So yeah, moving forward, I would say that when these kind of discussions are being seen, I see that when it comes to adoption of AI, there are 3 to 4 standard objections or concerns that, and some of which you also mentioned, which includes, for example, maintenance, which is obviously a very important consideration. Then there is other comparison which is often made is, okay, this tool only costs me X amount of dollars every year.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
there is a very high token usage
Yeah.
when AI tools or platforms are used.
Yeah.
And therefore, there is no control over costs, or maybe we don't have a fair estimate of what it would cost as of today. The third thing that people talk about, and also again we addressed, is the data privacy,
Yep.
where we don't know what, because when we become imaginative, we become creative, we might get excited and put things in sheets or make things available which are probably not the right to do. And then the final one is business continuity. If it is not sort of structured or standardized, where to find what, uh, and how do you maintain that? If somebody goes out of the team, does he or she walk away with the knowledge and expertise? And those kind of things also will come into play.
Right.
But I believe these are temporary. When anything new comes, we have to set up the systems, everything has to change. And
Yeah.
probably it is not as, if I were to think of an analogy, it's not a perfect one, but let's say when A380s were launched as an aircraft, a lot of airports had to be redesigned. Aero bridges had to be added for 2 levels. The runways had to be assessed or extended. A lot of these things. And similarly, when we are adopting something new because it offers value, we will have
Yeah.
to prepare the stage for doing that. There has to be a framework for adoption. We have to have policies set and guidelines set with which the team can work in a systematic fashion. Once that is set, I believe the stage will be set for adoption in a very systematic fashion and allow us to reap the benefits of what AI technology offers to learning designers. Right. So what do you think about that? I mean, I just told you, but you don't have to agree with me. But that's my belief. Tell me if I'm going wrong somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of unknowns. I'm still like, there's a lot of talk about the AI bubble, and my $200 Claude subscription that costs $200 for me per month costs them $1,500. So, like, are we talking about the subsidized tokens? They're building dependency on a tool that e- they could change the price at any time. You know what I mean? There's no reason, there's no law that says they have to charge a certain amount, or they couldn't like quadruple or, you know, multiply their price by 10. So I think that is a real risk that is maybe going to crash sooner than later. I don't know. I think that's a consideration. I would say in terms of business continuity though, how hard is it for you to find somebody that knows Parda, for example? It's harder than it is for you to find someone who knows Storyline. I would argue it's a lot easier to find a developer who knows how to program JavaScript and HTML than it is to find somebody who knows how to use Storyline. Even today, like even though there's so many people that use it, it's still a niche tool that we use because we're instructional designers or e-learning developers, but the rest of the world has no idea about. Ask anyone if they know what Adobe Captivate is, and they will be surprised to know that it is not part of the Creative Cloud, that it is not not like, which one is it? Are you talking about the classic or the new? Like they're very niche tools that don't really need a, you know, like I guess I'm saying that they have created an urgency and a need for instructional designers and e-learning developers to learn them because people didn't know how to code. And now we're taking the needing to know how to code back from that and saying you still don't need to know how to code, but you can leverage the code in a way that these tools can't. And I think there's value in that. And I think that it's easier for anyone to pick up code than it is for them to pick up a Storyline project, especially if they don't have the source file, right? Like, so I think that's that's one thing I'd push back on a little bit, but I do think that, the governance issue is a thing, regulation is a thing. How much can you trust it? But I think you're right, though. Overall, we need the infrastructure. And I think especially as local models get better, that you're going to lose a lot of those. If you can run the model offline and it can do all the stuff you want it to do in a basic, simple way, that takes away a lot of the privacy risk. That takes away a lot of the, like, I can't pass, protected information. Yeah, I can do whatever I want because it's in a closed, secure environment, not connected to the internet, not connected to Wi-Fi. So I do think, like, it's a matter of time before the models get better. Like especially the Chinese open models that are going on. Meta's doing a lot of open models, which, I don't know how much you want to trust Meta with your privacy, but again, the point being, like, back in 2022, ChatGPT couldn't code for me, and now it totally can. So, like, we're talking about less than 4 years difference. So I would say, within, by 2030, if we don't have a local model that's as good as Claude is today at coding, I would be extremely surprised if that's not even, like, next year. Like, the way that things move so quickly, this whole research project that I did is out of date today, and it was 6 months. It was like 6 months ago, 7 months ago. So it's very, like, it moves so fast that I think business, yeah, we're either gonna crash and burn or we're gonna figure out the guardrails, like, one way or the other. I think we can't continue to move at this speed without doing one or the other. I don't think we can continue on this same path at this same speed. Yeah.
Right. So I agree with you that the pace at which things are moving and what we see possible and the alternatives coming up, including the offline models that could be run without having been connected to the internet and other stuff, which could be locally hosted. So there are so many things that are happening, I'm sure, that are also driven by the market needs. It is not just the learning and development related requirements, but also others where such requirements are there, and we would benefit from such developments and releases. So I strongly believe that we don't know what we don't know, meaning what's coming, and therefore all we could do is look at it optimistically and hope and be prepared for it, saying, okay, if we have to adopt this and use it in a certain fashion, what kind of policies, what kind of framework I need to have in place? How can I prepare my workforce? How can I reskill or upskill my existing instructional designers or the other team members? And that also makes me think about what we used to do 20 years back, right? The instruction designers in most of the services companies would not do the programming. They would not directly use the authoring tools because authoring tools are not so popular then. They had to be coded, right? Flash was being used. And so we may be going back to that age where instruction designers are actually going into what they really should be using their time for, is becoming learning architects, transforming them into that and allowing them to imagine, and then they setting the mandate for developers who will have to create those experiences or enable them, and they are able to string together an experience that achieves a certain objective. I see that happening once the stage is set and the organizations prepare to change the way their own content or learning experience. I don't even want to say content, learning experience, design and development gets established. And while I am on I would call myself as an AI optimist or somebody who believes looks at it from optimism. I also know that there are others who are sitting on the fence. They believe that, yes, I know AI can do it, but I have these concerns, and therefore they are just not willing to act. At the same time, there are others who I believe are very strong in their opinion that AI can never replace what instruction designers can do. And there are a number of good arguments for that as well, but only time will tell, we are saying. So there are these groups of people with these different opinions, and therefore it is very hard to tell what would be the future of authoring tools, or rather, I don't think that is even a good question, in my opinion. I think the good question should be, how is it, what kind of learning experiences need to be produced? How will they get produced? Who will play what role in getting it done? How can we prepare ourselves for doing that? These are more important questions than looking at simply ROI or other things. Because if we just keep focused on ROI or efficiency, we might be losing out on the opportunity to help our learners and make them successful, isn't it? Tell me, what do you think? What is your opinion and view on this?
Yeah, no, you're asking the right questions. And I think it's made me move from this should be a storyline course. And often I hear from instructional designers, and it's mirrored my own experience and why I started really looking at this research and then really getting into AI. And it's just continued to reinforce this as like, hey, I need some training. Cool, I'll make you a storyline. It's like, no, that's not the right answer. That's not the right question to ask. And that's not the right, you can't, I have a hammer. I don't care what I'm going to hit with this hammer. This is going to get hit with a hammer. So I think you're right. I think that, I've gone a lot more towards micro learning, just in time learning. Because why does micro learning make a lot more sense than, traditional hour-long, 2-hour-long, 3-hour-long courses? We're talking about spaced repetition. We're talking about the forgetting curve. We're talking about the actual things in cognitive science that help people learn things and remember them over time. And that's where we should come back. Like, we should come back. Can you build micro learning in storyline and Rise? Yeah, you can. But are you doing that? That's another question, right? Like, yes, you can do these things, and it's not so much the tool that's doing that, but the tool does push you in certain directions. And when you have the freedom of something like an AI coding agent, where you can just say, I want to make a training like this. What do you think about this idea? And then kind of workshop it together, figure it out, and then have it build it. I think that gives us the best of kind of both of those situations. And yeah, I would love, and I think you're right. I would love to see instructional designers be instructional designers and not be just e-learning developers. And I think our field has a problem with roles and naming and titles, because if you look at 3 job posts for instructional designers, they're going to be 3 different things, and you're not going to know. You got to really read those posts, because those qualifications and those responsibilities are going to be way different based on what they're really actually looking for. Because they might say instructional designer, but they mean e-learning developer, or they might say instructional designer mean training facilitator. And I think that we can kind of claw our skills and our titles back from the e-learning side and look at the problem holistically and say, yeah, this is a problem, but we don't need to build a storyline course. We need to build a just-in-time app that people can reference things. We need to build, we need to change the lights in the room so people can see what they're doing. We need to look at environmental factors. We need to look at, cultural factors. We need to look at all of the things that are there. And that's where I think you're going to be a little bit more AI proof for now. Is if all you're doing is building Rise courses and that's your business, and if all ID Atlas was doing was selling people Rise courses, I'll be out of business next month. Like, that's not gonna cut it for the next year, 2 years, 3 years. I don't think Articulate's going bankrupt as much as I'd like them to, but I think that it's gonna be, like you said, a transformational shift. We'll get there. It's going to take some time, but I think it's already starting. And I think that there's so many more competitors, and then also looking at different buckets of things, like competitors of authoring tools plus AI by itself, vibe coding, and face-to-face training is still a thing. Like, we can still teach people face-to-face. So yeah, I am also an optimist, but I also am very aware of limitations and risks and the things that AI can do well and the things that it can't do well. I promise you, you will not design a good course if you just say, design me a course on how to teach somebody this thing. You need the designer to do that iterative process of, okay, but what are they actually going to learn here? Okay, how are they going to learn? How does this affect my learners? How does this affect the people that I'm dealing with, and what are the objectives that my business is trying to reach or my organization is trying to reach? So yeah, I don't think instructional design is going away. I think that we are going to see a calling of e-learning developers, and hopefully a realization that is the snapback of the hype of AI of like, we don't need anyone anymore. AI will do everything for us. AI will design our courses, and it will build our courses, and it will teach our courses, and it will learn our courses for us. Um, and we'll see. No, we need people that know how to leverage AI well so that we can be more effective, be more efficient, and be, to your point, transformational. I think that's a really good hook for us to land on there is we are hopeful of the transformation, but at least if we can get to effectiveness, that would be a good next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to wrap it up, I'll just put one idea across is that we have to move from being generalists to specialists. What I mean by that is an ID required to do everything, right from instructional design to course development to any other things that follow. They could become specialists who uh, design learning end to end and in a manner that is truly beneficial for the learner. And there are other roles that specialize because that also needs specialization, whether it is use of modern or advanced authoring tools they may become, or a combination of those and vibe coding with the use of AI, whatever that is. But that becomes a specialist role. And then there are others who are looking beyond just course design or intervention design delivery to actually work with other functional leaders and understand what performance issues are. So performance consulting specialists who then make use of the entire team. So the entire L&D function may have to be reinvented and organized in a certain fashion to bring in the transformation is my belief, and I hope to see that very soon. And technology is only going to help us, but at the same time we have to think about it and put it, work towards that. So right, okay, so I enjoyed this discussion with you thoroughly, and while I don't think we have an answer to what will happen with the of training tools, and I don't think we'll have an answer very soon. But I loved the the inputs or the perspective you had with such a lot of experience in building courses and having deep interest in seeing where things are going. So I truly appreciate your sharing your insights on this talk, and look forward to continuing our discussion otherwise soon. And I'd also want anybody else who's watching this to come up with any questions, give their opinions or whatever. We'd be happy to share our opinions, views, or even share some insights that may be helpful to them to make this transformation and make best use of technology.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'd love to continue the conversation and answer any questions that anybody might have. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn at Mike Stein Design, and you can always reach out to me through my website, idatlas.org. And yeah, love the conversation. I'm excited for the future, and I think I'm definitely not as pessimistic as some, but I am trying to keep it trying to keep a realistic perspective on it as well.
Great. Thank you. And we'll also be putting up the information in text at the end of the podcast so you can pick it up from there. So thank you everyone for watching this, and looking forward to continuing our interactions. Thank you.